Inside the factory, Arudo was busy checking piles of, or sorting them by rank. Only 5 piles left, and he'd be done. That's when Marza, a short, pig-faced supervisor, barged in, yelling for him to appraise another 1,000 ores by tomorrow. The war with the Grouse Empire was close, and they needed weapons fast. When Marza stomped out, Arudo let out a frustrated shout. He could keep going, but his body was already at its limit. Still, he refused to go back to the days of hunger and unpaid work. This job was all he had. Then a voice came from the shadows, calm but sharp, telling him to stop. If he kept pushing his magic like this, it warned he'd die. Arudo froze. He had no idea who was speaking or how long they'd been there. It was too dark to see, so he considered using his ability on the stranger. The hooded man stepped forward slightly, saying he knew what Arudo could do and inviting him to join the Grouse Empire. Arudo's heart jumped. The Grouse Empire was the enemy. Startled, he kicked a crate and hissed in pain, rubbing his foot. He glanced at the guard nearby, still slumped over in a drunken sleep, and secretly used appraisal on the man in the hood. Sweat broke out on his forehead as the information appeared. This man was a military officer from the Grouse Empire. The stranger spoke again, telling him shouting was pointless. The guard was too drunk to wake. He advised Arudo to pick his targets more carefully if he planned on using magic. Arudo's blood ran cold. Nobody had ever caught him using appraisal before. Bowing quickly, he stammered that it was just a habit, nothing serious. The man tilted his head, impressed. He hadn't known Arudo could use appraisal on people, and now he was even more interested. He made an offer, a normal life, even the chance to rise as a noble if Arudo came with him. Arudo slowly straightened, realizing this was a recruitment pitch. He didn't want to believe it, but the man went on. In the Grouse Empire, birth and status meant nothing. Skill and strength decided your place. Arudo's hard work and talent would be valued there, not wasted. He said he'd be waiting at the south gate at midnight and turned to leave. Before going, he tossed Arudo a small item, telling him to use it to judge for himself. The object flared with a blinding light, showing an image. Arudo blinked and stared. It was Marza's voice, speaking to a high noble. The noble praised Marza for making a commoner like Arudo their appraiser, saying profits had skyrocketed. Then the noble asked how long Arudo would last. Marza laughed, saying they'd squeeze everything out of him before letting him die. The noble agreed, praising Marza's ruthlessness. Tears welled in Arudo's eyes. He gritted his teeth. Was he supposed to keep slaving for people like this, risking his life for scraps? In this country, orphans from poor families ended up on the streets. Arudo had been lured with food and money, dragged here, and forced to work. Those who tried to run were caught and tortured. Only his rare appraisal skill had kept him alive. All he'd ever wanted was a normal life, but he'd never had power or choices. He thought of the hooded man's offer. Maybe this was his only chance. At midnight, Arudo went to the south gate. He was about to use appraisal to locate the man when he heard a rustling sound in a nearby tree. Walking closer, he apologized for making the man wait. A voice came back, calm and steady, saying he was right on time. The hooded figure leapt down, landing lightly, then pushed back his hood. "My name is Ars Bellart," he said. Ars Bellart smiled when Arudo showed up, suggesting they talk while walking away from the city. As they walked, Ars asked about Arudo's abilities. He was surprised to learn the boy could even locate people using appraisal, and he asked what exactly Arudo could see. Arudo explained that he could read names, roles, abilities, acquired skills, and natural talents. When Arudo appraised Ars himself, he found that the Major's archery talent was higher than his swordsmanship. Ars wondered out loud if he should switch to archery, but Arudo shook his head. Effort mattered more than talent, he said. If someone was starting from zero, talent could guide them, but it didn't define them. Ars asked if Arudo had chosen his ability. Arudo admitted he couldn't even appraise himself. He was simply born with this skill. When they reached the midpoint of their journey, Ars handed him a letter of introduction. From here, someone would guide Arudo to the Grouse Empire. Once there, he should go to the address written in the note. Arudo thanked him, grateful that someone was willing to accept him despite his only skill being appraisal. He had nothing but bitter memories of this kingdom, yet now he'd gained one good memory at the end. Ars shook his hand, telling him that he had real ability. It was just his environment that had been holding him back. As Arudo walked away, Ars pulled his hood back up, saying quietly that he had high hopes for the boy. Maybe he would stand beside Her Majesty one day. 10 days later, near the border of the Grouse Empire, the coachman nudged Arudo awake. He blinked and muttered something about going back to work. The coachman chuckled and told him to look up. Arudo did, and stared in awe. The imperial capital of Kalism rose in the distance, its buildings bright and majestic. The carriage rolled on through the gate and into the city. Arudo climbed down and waved goodbye to the coachman before heading toward the address Major Bellard had given him, the Imperial military base. At the gate, he approached a guard named Keegan and explained that Major Bellard had sent him. Keegan eyed the skinny boy with open doubt. Arudo handed over the letter, but Keegan tossed it on the ground, scoffing that Major Bellard would never recommend someone like him. Arudo bent to pick it up again, insisting it was true. Just then, the door of a nearby carriage opened. A man stepped out, and Keegan snapped to attention, saluting Major Rudolph. The major asked Arudo to confirm his name, then told Keegan he'd received Bellard's report and would take it from here. Rudolph smiled, welcoming Arudo and offering to show him around. After changing clothes, Rudolph explained he'd tried to meet him earlier, but had missed him. Then he opened Bellard's letter, which described Arudo's ability to appraise over 800 items a day, and even people. The letter recommended giving Arudo subordinates he could train from scratch. Rudolph's smirk showed his interest. This was no ordinary recruit. Arudo would be enlisted as an officer candidate. If he achieved results on missions, he would be promoted. His first task: use his appraisal magic to train his own group, starting with children from the Army's protective facility. He would choose one and turn them into a capable soldier. A month later, there would be a military academy entrance exam, and his chosen trainee would have to pass. Since Arudo could see their potential, Rudolph told him to pick someone. Arudo went to the window and began appraising 7 recruits. Rudolph watched, eager to hear his decision. The recruits were Ralph, Close Combat Skill Rank C. Luris, Speed Enhancement Rank C. Karina, Archery Skill Rank B. Galbin, Spear Technique Rank A. Gars, Close Range Magic Rank A. Shara, Wide Area Magic Rank A. And one more, Sarah, Swordsmanship Skill Rank S. Sarah clearly stood out, a red-haired genius with unmatched talent. But Arudo hesitated. Training someone already brilliant wouldn't show his own value. Then he noticed a thin girl running on the track outside, being shouted at by her instructor. "Hurry up, Lily. At this rate, you'll repeat the year." Another student mocked, asking why someone with no talent was even here. Someone else called her an idiot. Arudo smiled faintly and turned to Rudolph. "Earlier, you said training someone doesn't have to be just about physical ability, right?" Rudolph nodded. "As long as they can be useful to the army, it's up to you." Arudo looked at Lily again, exhausted, clumsy, but still moving, and said, "I've found my trainee." A little while later, he and Rudolph went down to the training field, where the students were lined up under their instructor's command. The moment the students saw Arudo's badge, they realized he was a candidate officer. Still, a few of them whispered that he didn't look very strong. The instructor snapped at them to be quiet. Arudo noticed their stares, but Major Rudolph leaned over and advised him to walk with confidence. Then Rudolph apologized to the class for interrupting their training and announced that one of them would be chosen as an assistant to candidate officer Arudo. Excited murmurs ran through the students. Most were sure he would pick Sarah, the obvious genius. When Rudolph gave the signal, Arudo raised his hand and pointed to a different spot. Every head turned. "I choose Lily," he said. Gasps filled the training ground. Lily blinked and pointed at herself, unsure she'd heard right. The rest of the students were dismissed except for her. "Why her?" someone muttered. As the instructor barked at them to run 2 more sets of sprints, a girl named Maria couldn't hold back. "Why Lily?" she demanded. "She's a failure." The instructor panicked. warning her that this was an order and no objections were allowed. But Arudo stepped down and calmly told the instructor it was fine. He explained that Lily wasn't a failure at all. She simply didn't fit the current environment. Maria still looked unconvinced, so Rudolph suggested a mock battle between Lily and Maria. They'd wait 1 week, and depending on the outcome, he'd allow an appeal. Maria accepted immediately, thanking the major for the chance and promising she'd win. Rudolph smirked, saying he was looking forward to the result and counting on Arudo. Afterward, Arudo and Lily introduced themselves. When Arudo asked for permission to appraise her in detail, Lily's eyes went wide. "You can appraise people too?" she asked. "Well, I am an appraiser," he said lightly. She smiled shyly, half expecting such skill from an officer candidate. Arudo focused, narrowing his magic to see all of her. Her stamina, magic power, strength, defense, agility, all of it was ranked E or F. Only her luck was ranked D. No wonder training had been so hard on her. But hidden beneath all that was an S-rank talent for support magic. That was why he'd chosen her. He wrote her status down in a notepad and handed it to her. Lily trembled, shocked to discover she had a magical gift at all. Arudo told her that if she tried, she could become truly strong. They would start practicing magic soon, but first he needed to do some research. He asked where the library was, and they moved to a classroom stacked with books. While Lily struggled with a heavy crate of them, Arudo browsed the shelves, musing whether cooking was even relevant to the military. Outside the window, the other candidates were training hard. This really was a merit-based world, he thought, then looked back at Lily. She was straining so hard she looked like she might faint. He decided he wasn't going to rise just for himself. He'd do it for her too. "Stop, I'll find it myself," he said gently. Lily tried to argue, but he smiled. "I'm good at this." He activated appraisal to locate the exact book he needed and pointed it out to her. Lily retrieved it, amazed to find an introductory book on support magic, exactly where he said. "You can even use appraisal to find things?" she asked. As she read, Arudo confirmed that support magic could both strengthen allies and weaken enemies, buffs and debuffs. He asked what spell she wanted to try. Lily chose Power Up and Speed Up, so they began practicing. A few hours later, Arudo suggested one more attempt. "Focus your magic, then spread it through your whole body," he instructed. Lily followed his directions and activated Power Up. Arudo checked her status and smiled. She gained +2 in strength. "Try lifting that crate again," he said. She braced herself and, with a grunt, managed to move it, something she couldn't do before. "That's amazing," she gasped. "That's your hard work," Arudo replied. "No, it's thanks to you," Lily insisted, fired up to try harder. But Arudo noted she'd used over half her magic power already. At her current level, she couldn't sustain repeated casts. He calculated quickly. 1 point of magic restored about every 3 minutes. A single activation cost 20 points, and she only had 39 total. Continuous use was impossible for now. Lily noticed his far-off look. "What are you looking at?" "The appraisal results," he said. Seeing her confusion, he explained that only he could view them. This time, he tried appraising not Lily herself, but the flow of her magic. He found that normal power-up should have increased strength by only 5%, but with her aptitude correction, it had jumped to +2, proof of her S-rank support magic. Just then a girl entered the room, announcing training was over and telling Lily she had to report to Major Rudolph's office. Lily nodded, then turned to Arudo. "I'll go ahead." That day's practice had already increased her magic capacity. But Arudo realized support spells didn't stack. Lily would have to raise her level and strengthen the effects if she wanted to beat Maria. In Major Rudolph's office, Sanzai asked what he thought of Arudo, the officer candidate. Rudolph said his first impression was that Arudo seemed unreliable, but his magic reserves were extraordinary. She asked who Arudo really was. Rudolph only smiled. "A gift from a colleague," he said. When Rudolph explained that Arudo could appraise over 800 things a day, Sanzai stared in disbelief. He showed her a note, the list of people Arudo had appraised earlier, their names and specialties written down. That meant he could even appraise moving targets, overturning what most people thought was possible with appraisal magic. "Don't you wonder what someone like that will do?" Rudolph asked quietly. After hearing Lily's report about her training with Arudo, Rudolph concluded the boy still didn't understand how unusual he really was. There were reasons for his lack of social awareness. things Rudolph couldn't go into now. Whether they chose to hide or reveal his power later, Arudo would need someone close to help him. That's why Rudolph asked Lily to become Arudo's direct subordinate, to support him and help him understand his own uniqueness. He stressed it wasn't an order and wanted to hear her opinion. Lily felt honored and agreed, leaning closer without realizing it. Embarrassed, she quickly straightened and apologized, but said she would gladly accept if he truly believed she was capable. Rudolph handed her a key, telling her he wanted her to be Arudo's support. Back in training, Arudo had Lily attempt casting 2 spells at once. She activated both speed and power-up successfully, but was exhausted afterward. Her mana pool was growing steadily, but her maximum spell level wasn't improving. Maybe they needed to try something different. He pulled out a book he'd read the day before. According to it, fighting monsters could break a person's limits. "Is there anywhere nearby where we can hunt monsters?" he asked. Lily said there was an army-managed forest, but they'd need Major Rudolph's permission. After asking, Rudolph granted access and added that if Arudo needed a porter, he could hire an adventurer. He also had permission to recruit anyone who caught his eye. They headed to the nearest guild. Inside, some adventurers talked excitedly about returning from a rank 8 quest, while others in patched clothes complained about having to gather herbs. Arudo noticed how clearly the guild divided people by skill and achievement. While Lily spoke to the receptionist about hiring a porter, Arudo scanned the room. That's when a young woman, Firen, poked his foot and motioned for him to keep quiet. She pulled something from her pocket, saying she was looking for work and would do anything. She seemed suspicious. Arudo was about to appraise her when the receptionist, Rube, came over scolding her. This was the 8th time Firen had tried soliciting clients directly. Without listening to Firen's protests, Rube dragged her out. Some upper-rank adventurers laughed, while the lower-rank ones stared grimly, realizing they might end up the same way. Arudo clenched his fist. The scene reminded him of the time a girl was dragged off by soldiers begging for help. He called Rube back and said he'd take Firen. Later, the 3 of them went to a burger shop. Lily was shocked when she saw Firen's appraisal results. Another S-rank potential. "Are you going to recruit her?" she asked. "Yes," Arudo said. Tears welled up in Firen's eyes as she ate the hamburger steak. She told them it was the first time she'd ever eaten food like this, and thanked them sincerely. Lily leaned forward. "Do you want to become Master Arudo's subordinate?" she asked. Firen blinked, not sure she'd heard correctly. Arudo explained she had a natural talent for archery. Firen shook her head. She'd never even held a bow and had no money for weapons. Before Arudo could say more, Lily slammed her hands on the table. "This is a limited-time offer," she declared. "If you become Master Arudo's subordinate, your room and board will be free." Firen's eyes lit up. "Really?" Lily said firmly. "And the weapons included. Master Arudo has recognized your potential." She smiled shyly. "Honestly, I felt a little lonely on my own. I'd like it if you joined us too." Firen was touched and agreed immediately. "We'll support Master Arudo together." They went to a weapon shop and bought Firen a bow and a staff. Before heading to the forest, Arudo suggested training first. At the military base gate, Kijin pointed them toward Major Rubel. Rubel smirked, eyeing them. "Which one of you is Major Rudolph's favorite?" he teased. Another private mocked Lily for becoming an officer cadet so easily. A third sneered that Firen was just an F-rank adventurer who'd failed to become a cadet. Rubel rapped the privates on the head, calling them idiots for putting others down to feel superior. "That's the act of the week," he said coldly. "Learn some shame." Then he turned to Arudo, Rudolph's favorite, and apologized for not introducing himself sooner. When Rubel heard that Rudolph had taken a liking to Arudo, he scoffed, wondering if that was all the boy was good for. He barked that the military wasn't a playground for the weak, it belonged to the strong. People who needed protecting had no place there. Does that mean only the strong fight and the weak stay out of the way? Arudo asked calmly. Rubel looked like the type who couldn't be reasoned with, but Arudo pressed on. "Are you saying the military doesn't need people who train the next generation of the strong?" Rubel frowned. "Of course we do. Teachers are necessary. Then do teachers have to be strong themselves?" Arudo asked. "Isn't it obvious?" Rubel replied. "It's normal for students to surpass their masters." "What are you getting at? Are you claiming you're some top-tier instructor?" Arudo shook his head. "No, but I do believe I can see people's potential." He glanced at Lily and Firen. "I'm sure they have more potential than the 3 of you standing here now." Rubel narrowed his eyes, studying Arudo's expression. Finally, he smirked. The academy entrance exam is in a month. It includes a duel. Let your subordinates fight these 3 gatekeepers. If it's against them, Arudo said confidently, they'll pass without a problem. Rubel chuckled and told him to give it everything he had. Then he waved the guards over, inviting them for a drink. Kjun shot a glance at Arudo's team before following. Afterward, the two apologized for being useless in front of Rubel's pressure, but Arudo reassured them. That was on a whole different level. There was nothing you could have done. He checked Lily's status and noticed her level had gone up. Back at the apartment, Firen looked around in awe. I can really stay here? She asked, almost in disbelief. Goodbye camping life. She hugged them both, wiping away tears. Arudo asked Lily to show him the room again, but she said there was something more important to discuss first. They set their weapons aside and sat down. Lily leaned in. About your appraisal magic, she began. In this city, there are lots of appraisers, but none of them can appraise people. They can only appraise objects, name, price, and rank from S to F. What you can do is a military-level secret. Arudo froze. Really? Marisa told me years ago that any appraiser could do what I was doing, even normal people. I thought being proud of it was embarrassing. What result did you get back then? Lily asked. It was 10 years ago. If it had been good, I'd remember. I've forgotten, Arudo said. Lily suggested maybe his ability had been suppressed, so his own results wouldn't be exposed. Firen finally understood. Her bow aptitude made sense now. She never heard of someone appraising people either. Lily apologized for steering the conversation away from Firen's ability earlier, but Firen waved it off. Don't worry, I didn't notice anything. Arudo asked, so being able to appraise a person's abilities is unusual? Not unusual, Lily corrected. Unique. Only you can do it. Do you plan on telling people? If you announced it, you could become a major or higher, she added. Firen's eyes widened. Like that big guy earlier, Rubel? Arudo shook his head. I'm not announcing it, but thank you for telling me. Why not? Firen asked. You could rise so fast. Lily guessed the reason. Because it's risky. Not everyone likes their results. You make a lot of enemies. Arudo flinched, scratching his cheek. That's part of it, he admitted. But mostly I don't want to spend my life doing appraisals nonstop ever again. They decided to start training and look for an archery book. But before they could leave, a girl named Laura delivered a message. Major Rudolph wanted Officer Cadet Arudo in his office alone in 2 hours. Firen assumed it was about her. Lily guessed it was about the gate incident. Outside, they began training. Firen struggled to draw the bow, dropping to her knees. It's impossible, she muttered. Arudo watched, thinking about how Lily's level up had been triggered by the exchange with Rubel. Firen apologized for failing, but Arudo reassured her. Everyone starts somewhere. Don't give up. Motivated, she tried again. Arudo noticed her strength stat was at rock bottom. He asked Lily to cast power up on her. Lily did so, and this time Firen pulled the bowstring easily. She's a support mage, Arudo told Firen. Wow, I feel invincible now, Firen exclaimed. Lily waved off the praise. It's all thanks to Master Arudo. Arudo turned to leave. I'm going to see Major Rudolph. If she has trouble again, cast a spell on her, he told Lily. Inside Rudolph's office, the Major apologized for the sudden summons. Since you're going to the forest anyway, could you collect these herbs for me? Arudo asked what kind they were. You have appraisal, don't you? Rudolph said. Arudo nodded and activated his skill. The herb's description appeared. Water magic herb. Rank C. Price 280 yen. It was Rudolph's first time seeing the herb in person. He explained that before Arudo arrived, a massive forest fire had broken out. No one knew the cause. Luckily, there were no casualties, but it had been barely contained and the army's stock of supplies was wiped out. They'd sent requests to every guild, but the supplies still hadn't caught up. If you happen to find any while you're out there, Rudolph said, I'd like you to collect them. But this isn't an assignment. I'll buy them from you. Arudo blinked in surprise, then thanked the Major. Rudolph even mentioned giving performance bonuses and joked that Anne Marza should take notes from it. Since Arudo clearly knew more about condition-based pricing, Rudolph would leave that in his hands. With that, the Major turned back to his desk, signaling the meeting was over. Noticing Rudolph hadn't brought up the gate incident, Arudo spoke up about his run-in with Major Rubel. Rudolph frowned, saying he hadn't seen Rubel for several days but promised to handle it. He then handed Arudo an official appointment order, announcing that Firen was now officially his subordinate. Arudo studied the document. It was completely approved by the military brass. There was no way a complicated order like this could have been prepared in just 2 hours, which meant the executives had already anticipated he'd bring Firen back. Rudolph told him he'd be attending the trial match with the corporals and was looking forward to it. Aruto was stunned. Rudolph hadn't even met Rubel, yet he already knew about the mock battle at the gate. "You're working awfully fast," Aruto said. Rudolph smiled slightly. "I think Rubel might try to steal you away, so this much is only natural. Consider it a test of your own insight." Aruto left the room deep in thought. Were there factions trying to keep him from being recruited? Even if promoted, this all felt like a hassle. Maybe keeping his abilities secret really was the smart move. And since he'd originally come from an enemy nation, it was no surprise he was being watched. These people were far more dangerous than in Mars's crowd. Outside, an arrow struck a target. Aruto looked up to see Firen cheering after hitting a bullseye. He smiled. Being watched was nothing new. He raised his voice toward the unseen surveillance. "Bring it on." The next day, in the military forest, Aruto laid out the plan. They'd explore for 40 minutes. That was about how long Lily's magic would last. If 3 or more enemies approached or things got dangerous, they'd retreat immediately. Using his ability, Aruto scanned the area within 100 meters. No strong monsters nearby. He pointed out the closest ones and said there were water magic herbs near them, but with 2 monsters close by. First, they'd take down the nearest one, grab the herbs, and if there was time, defeat the second before heading back. "You can really tell where monsters are?" Firen asked. "Yeah," Rudo said. "Same method I used to find that Bao book." "So books and monsters are the same to you?" "Huh," she muttered. Lily tapped her shoulder. "You'll get used to it. Aruto doesn't follow normal rules." As Aruto asked Lily to cast power up on Firen using her staff, a bird watched from the trees. Lily's spell went off, and when Aruto checked their stats, he noticed Lily's own strength had also risen. "Did you cast it on both of us?" Firen asked. "No," Aruto said. "Mana use was only for one person. It looks like the staff boosted everyone automatically." He figured there might be clues in the staff technique book and made a mental note to check it later. They moved on until Aruto signaled a halt. He instinctively put a hand out to stop Lily. A monster was nearby. Lily stiffened. She could feel it too. "Quiet," Aruto whispered, and they crouched in the bushes. Up ahead was a rank F slime. Aruto whispered again, but Lily asked them to place their hands on the staff's crystal instead. When they did, she closed her eyes. "Can you hear me?" Her voice echoed in their heads. "Yeah," Firen replied, startled. Aruto blinked. "Since when could you do this?" Firen grinned. "This would be perfect for infiltration. Back to the fight. Think you can handle the slime?" Aruto asked Lily. She looked nervous but nodded. "I'll try. I'll support from here," Firen said, readying her bow. Lily charged forward, staff raised high, and brought it down, but the slime dodged. "Too close," Aruto muttered, leaping with his dagger, but before he struck, an arrow pierced the slime. Firen had nailed it in one shot. "Finish it," Aruto called. Lily snapped out of her daze and slammed her staff down again. The slime burst apart. "Good work," Aruto said, turning to Firen. "Nice shot. You saved us." Lily squealed when she saw Firen working on the slime's remains. "What are you doing?" "Dismantling it," Firen said casually. "It keeps it fresh longer. This is standard adventure stuff." Aruto noticed her knife was well cared for. Firen explained it was her father's keepsake. She wished she could chill the slime to preserve it better, but there was no river nearby. "Actually," Aruto said, "there's one not far from here." The two stared at him. "Seriously?" They followed him to a river. "Is this really your first time in the forest?" they asked. Aruto suddenly spotted water spirit grass, shocking them even more. "Finding herbs this fast isn't normal," Firen muttered. "And finding a river is one of the hardest parts of an expedition. This is practically classified level skill." Aruto rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. "Sorry, I'm not normal." When they asked how he'd done it, he hesitated, awkward about admitting it was all thanks to appraisal.